Here. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, and 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Great Scott Podcast. Today, I am joined by legendary pitcher Jim, the rookie Morris. How's it going, Jim?
Great, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I have to say, after reading your book, you are one inspirational person. I want to hold up the book real quick. I have it sitting right here. It's called Dream Makers. Surround yourself with the best to be your best. And you wrote it with a guy named Mark Sturritz. I want to hold up the book here just to give it a plug here. There it is.
Awesome.
And so what was the need for the book? What was it that made you write the book?
For 20 years, every time I do a speech anywhere, when we do a question and answer session afterwards, people are like, it's a great movie, it's a great story. What have you done since baseball? And so for 20 years, I had all this stuff that was going on that I didn't know how to share. And because I'm a person of faith, I kind of left it up to God for this one.
Yeah.
And he didn't give me one ending, he gave me two. And so if you read it, you know, chapters 9 and 10 are pretty straightforward, but I wanted to make the book exactly like I speak on stage. And so it's chronological order with ups and downs along the way, because that's how life is. It's bumpy, man. We've realized that in the last 17 months. This is a rule, that's a rule. It changes from hour to hour, minute to minute.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to first off talk about your grandfather really played a key role in your life. His name was Ernest Morris, and he had his own store, and he had a couple of famous visitors, which I'll let you talk about here in just a moment, but he also taught you a few important lessons as well. I mean, he was kind of the guy who instilled you to be the man that you are today. And there was one such lesson that I was reading about that Ernest taught you, was that you treat people with respect no matter what. I mean, there was a lady that came in and she wasn't dressed so properly, and his employees just looked over her, and he sounded like one heck of a guy.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And, you know, that generation knew nothing but work.
Yeah.
And heartache, and the World War II, the Great Recession, all of that stuff that they went through. And so he worked hard, and he didn't want anybody looking down anybody. He said, it doesn't matter what color anybody's skin is. There are good people and there are bad people, and that's it.
Yeah.
And absolutely. He is the pinnacle dream maker for me in my life, because at 15, I could have fallen off the rails when my parents moved me to my grandparents. And he had this still voice that just, you listened, it resonated. And he would go, what are you going to do when you can't throw the ball hard anymore? And when you're young, you're like, I'm going to throw hard as long as I want.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you're like, whoa, I can't throw the ball hard anymore. But he wanted me always to have a plan B. And he goes, don't get so busy looking for one dream that you forget to look at the other doors and see what's there. You may find something you like better.
Yeah. And you had made a promise to him right before he passed away as far as your baseball career goes.
Oh, man. He told me to give it up if I needed to give it up. But if I had another chance to go back and finish it, I didn't want to wake up at the end of my days and go, what if I would have tried one more time?
Yeah.
And so he was a defining point in my life. And I watched him lead a community and part of a whole state on his shoulders. And then he did it from a wheelchair with Lou Gehrig's disease. And his strength and character just, it shook me, because I'd grown up with parents and my father was physically and verbally abusive. And this is my father's father. And this guy is the exact opposite of what my father stood for. And so Ernest kind of became my dad, because he was not going to let me slip, but he was going to be there in case I fell. And so you couldn't ask for a better role model than that.
And he made you treat your grandmother in such a way that opening the door for her, treating her with respect, like how you would treat a normal woman. I mean, that kind of goes back to treating a person fairly and justly.
Yes. Had me take my grandmother on lunch dates once a week the entire time I was in high school, so I would know how to treat women. And car doors, restaurant doors, pull out chairs, fold out napkins, take their arm across the street, keep them inside away from traffic. I can still list everything that he talked about. And it wasn't drumming it into me. It wasn't yelling or screaming or anything else. It was just this calm voice going, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. Like when you walked into his menswear store, you took your hat off if you had a hat on. And that's just how gentlemen do things. And he made you want to be a better person. And so that's the main crux of where the book comes from, is I want people to be better than they are right now. We've lost our patience, and we need to get that back.
So I now want to talk about your dad. His name was Jim as well. That's who you're named after. And he wasn't the friendliest guy, to say the least. Just to say, he threw you overboard one time when you were on a fishing trip, I think it was, with him and your uncle.
Yes.
And he said you cannot swim. Well, I'm trying to keep it clean because there were words that were said that I don't want to repeat. But he made a mockery out of you for fun a lot of the time. He verbally abused you and physically abused you. And there was a time where you just cut him off pretty much.
There was. And then I tried to accept him back because my pastor talked me into not burning bridges completely.
Yeah.
And he goes, he doesn't have to be way up there on your list. Just rearrange the list. Don't ever mark anybody off as a lost cause. He said, why don't you go back and tell him what he did and what hurt you when you grew up? And I tried to do that. And my father would just go, it's not that bad. And this is the same guy who, when he's holding my little brother, looks down at me and goes, this is the one we wanted. We never wanted you. And you're not going to win that battle. My grandmother's funeral, she's 98 when she passes away. And I go up to my dad in church, and I haven't talked to him in a long time. I just put my arm on his shoulder, and I said, Dad, I'm so sorry. I said, but Alice is with Ernest now. And he looked up at me in the middle of church, and he goes, don't ever effing talk to me again. And that was the last time I talked to him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, was there ever a time where you were able to reconcile with him, or no, there was no use to it?
No, but things I've learned over the years is I did speaking engagements. I would go to different places where people he had been to school with were now in charge of or part of that company. And they would come up to me inevitably afterwards and go, he's been that way since he was a little kid. He would pitch in a game, a little league game, and hit people just so he could fight. All he's ever wanted to do is fight. Yeah. And I don't know what went wrong. My uncle turned out exactly a perfect combination of my grandparents. My father just had issues, and I hope he solved those before he passed away.
And your dad was a very athletic man too. I mean, he stated in the book that he kind of sabotaged his own success. I mean, he would be good at something and then find some reason to not succeed somehow. I mean, you guys both played under the same exact coach as well.
Yeah, he played for that coach for 2 weeks though. And, when it got hard, he didn't want any part of it. But he was a fantastic athlete. He had a contract to go pitch with the Mets and gets in a tackle football game. They end up in a fight in the middle of the yard, and he separates his shoulder, and he's done before he ever gets to start. I mean, his own worst enemy. Yeah. And he talked about living life, and I'm hoping that people will see I'm going out and living mine instead of then talking about it. And so if I can help people along the way with something that I did that wasn't exactly bright or positive, that they can look at that and go, I've done that, and I probably should not do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I want to make people think, and I want to make them laugh. And I think nothing is better than laughter.
And so Jim, you've had to go along with your life. You stay in the book, you've had over 50 different surgeries. You had pretty much 85% of your shoulder gone by the time you were 28 years old. Doctors told you would never make the major leagues. You can forget pitching. Your dad told you were worthless. Well, I think that's already been stated. And that coach, Gordon Wood, told you would never make baseball either. So
he said I was a football player.
And you were pretty good at football too.
I was pretty good, and I could have gone anywhere I wanted to, but baseball was my first love. It's what helped me get out of the house when I was a kid. and get me away from an abusive father. Because in between those lines, he could say what he wanted to, but in between those lines, I got to be the kid I was supposed to be.
Was it football that let you let out the aggression from what your dad put in you?
I'm guessing so, because that's where I got a lot of concussions.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, so yeah, you've pretty much been told you cannot play baseball or that you would never be able to pitch at all. And you also state, I mean, so for those that don't know, you were 35 before you ever got to pitch in the major leagues. And you state what could have happened, like what might have gone better. But there was one reason that you stated why it may have taken so long, and that's because you were occupied with yourself more than you were with other people. And you said you thought that maybe that could have been gone a little faster, this dream, had you have made it about other people.
Yeah. Those kids from Big Lake helped me realize what my grandfather had taught me so many years before. It's whatever situation you're in, we're part of a team, whether it's a family team, a work team, a school team, whatever team you're a part of, everybody's part of teams. And it's not about me when you're in a team sport, it's about the team. It's not about me, it's about we. And what can we do to win? What can we do to get better? How can we do this? We, and not me.
And so you finally learned that lesson at age 35, and which allowed you to be able to live out the dream you were so longing to do.
Yeah, all because of a group of 16 and 17-year-olds who I made a bet with. And when I pushed them to be better, they pushed me. They lived up to their end of the bargain, and now I had to. And see, when we make the bet in 1999, the kids can't hit me. By the end of the season, when we win district, I can't get these kids out. And now I got to go to a major league tryout. And I'm like, I can't get high school kids out. What am I doing?
Yeah.
And I go, and you're throwing 98. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And I was stunned. I was shocked. Those kids were hitting 98 miles an hour.
Wow. And you were offered baseball contracts before that.
You know, I had signed right after my grandfather had passed away. The Yankees drafted me out of high school without ever seeing me. Then the Brewers saw me at Ranger Junior College. And after my grandfather passed away, I thought, now it's time to go. And so I signed, but 6 years in the minors, 6 surgeries, you're out of baseball by 24. And I thought the dream was gone. You know, at 28, like you said, I had a surgery in which the doctor said, you will never, ever pitch again, physically impossible. Little did I know that 7 years after that surgery, I would come back throwing 10 to 12 miles an hour harder than I did when I was supposed to be young and talented. Go figure.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And so to go along with everything else, I know that this is like later on, but you have Parkinson's as well. You have Parkinson's disease. And so let me ask you, Jim, someone may be listening to this, and well, I know there's going to be people that listen to this, and maybe they're going through the rough time. I mean, what was it that kept you going through all the, I mean, because there was a time where you did give up. I mean, you wanted to give up. I mean, there were lots of times you say that you wanted to give up, but you resolutioned inside your head that you would not give up. So what was it that kept you going even after all the torture that you had been through?
Oh, my wife, Shauna, and she's been my rock. And I don't know that I would be here without her, Mike, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was my own worst enemy for a while. You know, you become a part of what you grew up with. And for 15 years, I was with my father every day. And I got to a point where I wasn't trying to kill myself, but I wasn't trying to live either, because Parkinson's wants to separate you from society. It wants to pull you apart so that you just get sicker and sicker. If it can make you sit still, it spreads quicker across your body. And I got to a point where all the surgeries, now 70, by the way, all the surgeries, you're either on opiates before, during, or after surgery, depending on what's going on. They're unregulated at the time. They're giving me, I had so many opiates, I could have gone out and bought like 3 brand new $80,000 pickups.
Yeah.
But I'm not overtaking them. I'm taking them like I'm supposed to, but with the headaches that I had from the Parkinson's, maybe 6-month headaches. And so I have scarring on my brain from headaches, and you can't get away from it. And the opiates weren't working. So I thought, well, with my vast medical degree, I will buy vodka and see if that works. And And that became a bad habit. And I don't remember the
Yeah.
Christmas of 2016. And it just kind of snuck up on me. And for the first time, when I went to rehab, chapter 9, I got pulled back into reality real quick. And it was the first time in my life at the age of 52 that I had to concentrate on me. I wasn't concentrating on a spouse. I wasn't concentrating on kids. I wasn't concentrating on baseball or school or teaching. I was here to fix me. And I walked into my counselor's office, who was a pastor, and he's been to every major league team. So immediately I liked him. He said he had mementos from every stadium across the country. And he pulls me, he goes, "Great movie, great story. Dennis was awesome. Why are you here?" And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of questions. I said, I quit trying to live. I wasn't thriving anymore. He goes, "But you know that Jesus has been with you the whole time." And I said, "Absolutely. I know that." He goes, so Jesus is your co-pilot?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Let me ask you one more question. If Jesus is in a vehicle with you, why is he not in charge?"
Mm,
And that, for some
yeah.
reason, that just hit me. And I was like, whoa. And in the meantime, my ladies from church from 50 to 90, they want me to call them my girls. You read the book. They're not ma'am. They're my girls. And
Yeah.
God bless them, man. They prayed with Sean and I through everything. And when I went to rehab, I'm watching everybody else get sick and stuff come out of both sides, and I don't detox at all. I mean, I'm just like, whoo, I'm alert.
Yeah.
And I started exercising again while I was there. And I thought, at that point, I'm not giving up anymore. This is ridiculous. This is not who I am. I've never given up on anything in my life. I'm not doing it now.
Yeah.
And you know what? I got in shape and I came home, but the Parkinson's kept getting worse. And here's what the deal I want the audience to realize. You have pills, you have vodka. We have so many escapes that are not good for us. When are we going to tune all that stuff out and do the things that are healthy for us? I
Yeah.
get home, my medical doctors, the people who are supposed to help me get better, if possible, are going, "It's just Parkinson's. You're just going to get sicker." I couldn't button my own buttons on my dress shirts. I couldn't tie ties. My wife had to travel with me. My girls would watch a film of me doing a speech, and I'm not making any facial expressions. They have to turn the mic all the way up so they can hear me at all. And I'm a mess. I'm not on anything anymore. No pills, no alcohol, but I'm still getting weaker. And to the point where my elderly mother bought me a cane to walk around the block. All right. Over the course of the last 4.5 years, let's just say I don't have Parkinson's anymore. And the only elective surgery I ever had in my life was last July when I had my deep brain stimulator taken out because I had had it turned off for 2 years.
Mm,
And now I run 5 to 7 miles a day. I lift every day. And if I don't do that, I get kind of grumpy because I'm like, I put pressure on me. I don't put pressure on other people, but on myself, I'm like, get up and move. You sat still for too long. And now I'm healthy and I'm eating well, and man, life is good. And now we're getting back on the road, and it's just fun to be a part of things. And it's fun to talk to you, and it's fun to share my story because I don't poke fun at anybody but me. And so the good stories I tell are about really good people. And then the bad stuff is stuff I did or thought. And I was like, wow, you were messed up at points in your life. But here we are in 2021, we're able to talk about it and I'm able to laugh about it.
And you mentioned your mother, and at the time you were ready to quit because you had been in spring training, and you called your mom and said, "Mom, I just don't think this baseball thing is going to work out." But she gave you
Yeah.
some advice about what would your grandfather think about that, with the
Yeah.
promise you made to him.
You came back to that, didn't you? After my first game in rookie ball, I'm 19 years old. My grandfather has been passed away for 5 months now, the person, my mentor, my dream maker. And my first outing in rookie ball, in which we had 13 people off that team go to the big leagues. And that is unheard of. It doesn't ever happen, but we had a
Oh,
fantastic team. And so I'm watching all these guys do really good, and I suck. I can't get anybody out. And after one game, 53 pitches into the first inning, I'm like, I can't get anybody out. 5 home runs. They haven't landed yet. The satellites are on them. And now I'm out of the game. I can't even get an out. And so I go in the clubhouse, no cell phones at the time. I call my mom on the clubhouse phone. I'm crying, man. It's like my dream that I've wanted for so long is just gone. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. And I call her and I go, I'm done. I'm quitting. I suck. I'm coming home. I can't do this. And she said, what would your grandfather say? What would your grandfather say? Someone who gave their word, promised to do something, signed a contract, and then walked away like it never existed. You're sticking it out, good or bad, till the end. No matter what happens, you're not welcome here. Don't come here. And I stuck it out. And now I know I don't have to wake up one day and go, what if I would have given it a little bit more? What if I would have done things the right way from the beginning? There are no what ifs. I know the answer. And when I got to the big leagues, I mean, Royce Clayton could have hit a bomb off me that day and knocked it out of Arlington. I didn't care. I got there. And I got there because of a group of kids who, when I didn't give up on them, they didn't give up on me.
And they, well, I mean, counseling was going on both directions between you and those kids. I mean, there was a guy, Scott Simmons, who kind of destroyed what you were trying to do with these kids, and those kids were not the best. And I'm at that page right now because it is so good. I mean, because you say 80% of what you do wrong, you got to figure that out and then develop that. But then the other 20% is just believing in yourself, which you obviously didn't at that time, because you were telling these kids, I mean, because dreams are all about what you're about, pretty much. I mean, that you have to have dreams. I mean, keep setting dreams higher and higher and higher. And so the kids pretty much asked you, how come you're not going after your dream if you're telling us to go after ours?
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
you know what? That's where the movie starts after the Nuns. And the first two games that are played are 15-1 and 15-0. And they'd heard something the athletic director said. It was horrible. He ruined 2 years of work in 90 seconds. Two of my kids heard it. I didn't see them. And so those first two games were like, Coach, people come through here on the way to somewhere else. And so I sent my kids down the left field line after the second blowout. And I just stood on the plate and I said, what can I teach these kids? How can I push them without breaking them? How can I get them to dream? And the answer was so simple and so quick. It was just like, go down there and teach them what your grandfather taught you. And it was like, oh, okay. And little did I know that by teaching them the things that my grandfather taught me, I was relearning them myself. And so as I'm teaching these kids, I'm remembering everything in my mind. I'm like, man, I've gotten off track several times and I need to get back on track. And so when I asked these kids, I said, you guys got to go out and live life. Don't let life live you. What is it you guys want? And they said, we want to win a district championship, which these kids have never been a part of in their lifetime in baseball. And I said, all right. And well, if we win, you try out. And I said, look, I'm 35. I should be getting out of baseball. I weigh 260 pounds. I look like a scout, not a player. I've had 9 surgeries. The doctor said, you'll never, ever pitch again. 85% of my deltoid muscle is gone. That's impossible. It can't happen. I'm like, Coach, if we win, you try out. And I caved in like every parent in the country and the world does. I was like, if you win, I'll find a tryout. In the back of my mind, I'm going, you are old and fat and this is going to be embarrassing. And you know what? The kids, that gave them something to push towards. They now had an adult willing to go out and do something if they reciprocated. And so we pushed each other to become better.
Absolutely. And then when you, it was you and your roommate at the time that went out to go try out for baseball, for the tryouts for the major leagues. And I think it was, you said 6 people had already been rejected. And then the manager comes and taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, Jim, I want to talk to you. And you get the surprise of your life, pretty much.
And I go to the tryout and I'm not throwing 85 or 88 anymore. I'm throwing 98 to 100. And he goes, I don't know what you've done your time off aside from eat, but you're throwing 98 with incredible movement. And I was like, I was throwing 98. And one, there's a happy dance, right? Because somebody's like,
right.
Hey, you throw gas. That's awesome. And the other part of my brain's going, you're an educator. You've been throwing 100 miles an hour at high school kids. You're getting sued. That's what's happening. And he goes, look, you were 35 when you got here. I'm calling this in. And now you're 32. And I just looked at him. I go, if I come back again, can I be 29? And he wasn't getting my humor at all. And I thought, okay, never mind. He goes, don't be surprised if you get a phone call. I get home, it was 12, come back and pitch. I call my high school kids and I said, he wants me to come back and throw. If I do good, he wants me to sign a contract. Now, on the other side of this, I have a job in Fort Worth at a great big high school and the opportunity to coach football and be the head baseball coach. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm good at. I am successful at teaching kids how to dream. I'm not successful at doing it myself. And I went back to the tryout. Half my team went, my kids went again, and rained so bad they had to have me a brand new baseball every pitch. It's lightning out. The catcher has metal on. I've got metal spikes. And all my kids are around the batting screens that we're pitching into while it's pouring and lightning. In 98, I signed a contract because if I'm telling these kids to do one thing to push themselves towards it, and then I turn around and walk away from my dream, I'm not teaching them what I need to teach them.
No. And the coach says, so we need you in Texas, and you thought that meant for you to go home because, like I said, 6 other people were already rejected, and no, there's a uniform waiting for you because the Rays are in Texas right now, and you said you have to be kidding me.
I was stunned.
Yeah.
And I'm going back to my home state, my favorite ballpark. I get to see not only my personal kids, but my high school kids for the first time in 3 months. I've never been away from my kids more than a week into a baseball tournament. And now I'm going to be a big league ball player. And I sign a contract before I walk into the big league clubhouse, and they give me meal money, right, for 10 days.
Yeah.
And 10 days worth of meal money is more money than I made in a month teaching. And I'm like, I could do this forever, man. And I walk in, there's Wade Boggs and Fred McGriff and Roberto Hernandez and Jose Canseco. And I'm like, I've been teaching my guys how to do things by watching you guys. And now I'm here with you. It was just the most surreal, incredible moment I've ever been in.
Now, you talk about one of your dream makers who you had a baseball signed by him when you were younger. And now I won't say, because I want to set this up real quick. And so you would play baseball when you were a kid with just about anything. I mean, you had a helmet that was signed by Fred Lynn. But this particular baseball I'm talking about, the signature was washed off. You guys played, because you guys would play in the snow when you were younger. Yeah. But then eventually you got to re-meet this guy at the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah. And when you asked him to sign your baseball again, he laughed and chuckled and said,
He clapped me on the back and he just started giggling. And I was like, I watched you hit so many home runs, and I'll never have any idea what he went through in my life to get to that record, because everybody else was like, no, that's Babe Ruth's record. And Hank Aaron went out every day. He dressed up. He professional, courteous, high character, and just incredible. And here I am with Hank Aaron. I'm closing the stock market, and I ruined your ball when I was 10 years old. And he just starts giggling. And it was just a cool moment, because he's my hero. Because if baseball stands for anything, it's seen us through a lot of our history in this country. And this man did it while getting death threats the whole time. And what he withstood to overcome everything he overcame and to get to where he was just amazing to me. And if everybody would do that to make themselves better, man, we'd have a better place to live.
Absolutely. And to me, Hank Aaron is still the home run king, just saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Because he didn't have steroids back then.
I didn't say that, you did.
Okay. All right. Well, anyways, so you're with the Devil Rays, and there was a pitcher who is a Kansas City native. He also played here in Kansas City, and that's Hernandez, Roberto Hernandez, who became a close personal friend of yours. And there were a couple pieces of advice that he gave you as far as being a ball player around there. Can you tell us those couple pieces of advice he gave you?
Man, he said as a reliever, he goes, have a very short memory. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, because whether you did really good or really bad, you're going to be back out there tomorrow night, and you better be ready to go. And so if you did great, rub it out and go, this is another game. If you did bad, flush it and let's move on and let's do great tomorrow. And, he taught me a lot about baseball. And he goes, you got here on your fastball, use your fastball. And, you know, there were guys in the organization who are like, throw your slider more. It's so good. Throw your slider more. And he's going, you have 4 different fastballs that you throw and it goes every direction. Throw your fastball. And then he would introduce me to people. And one of the stories that people don't realize a whole lot are the really good stories about baseball. We all hear about the negative stuff. And, oh, this person did this and this person did that. Well, it doesn't matter what school you're in, what business you're in, what team you're on. Almost every single person there is going to be incredibly nice and of high moral standing. And then you have one of those people who are just a thorn in everybody's side. And, you know, Bert was an awesome person. And I woke up one morning, we had been rained out. And so we sat in the bar in the Grand Hyatt in Manhattan until 3 when they kicked us out. And I go to bed and I'm like, I'm sleeping until I go to the ballpark. At 6, the phone rings. He goes, get up. We're going to breakfast. And I'm like, oh no. And I get ready. I go downstairs and I meet him and we walk down the street and he reaches through these bars to this window and he knocks on the door and this guy opens his door, pulls the bars back, and it's a menswear store like my grandfather had. And 3 suits, 3 shirts, ties, belts, shoes, socks, had it tailored. It was in my room that night. I didn't have to pull out a credit card or anything. They paid for it. I mean, incredibly generous. And those are the people I gravitate towards because those are people who give back. And that's what I learned from my grandparents. And so Roberto Hernandez for me was my baseball mentor.
And there's also something he told you about the shampoo as well.
Yeah, if a certain team has been in town, don't use the shampoo in the shower. He goes, and definitely don't use the iron in the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, why? He goes, because they'll pee in the iron, and then you iron your shirt and it's got pee on it. I'm like, oh no, that's brutal.
I didn't even know that.
Like I said, there's always that one on the team who's a practical joker.
Yeah. So anyways, all right, let's talk about the movie now. Let's talk about The Rookie. You had been trying to distribute this movie or try to find someone to distribute it, but well, you had been going to meetings about this movie.
I had people calling me in AAA, and it was my roommate from when I was, the first time around when I was 19. And now he was a movie producer, and he worked out with Michael Eisner, then president of Disney. And they saw one of the interviews I did while I was in Durham playing with the Bulls, and he goes, hey, we want to make a movie about you. And I started giggling and I hung up. And he calls back, he goes, hey man, we want to make a movie. I said, you're not making a movie about an old fat guy who comes back to baseball at 35, dude. You're not making a joke out of me. And he kept calling and I kept hanging up. And I finally called my agent, Steve, and I go, Steve, take care of Mark. And he took over. And then Bill Plaschke, my second day in the big leagues, writes this huge article about me. And my third night in the big leagues, I had to change my number in the hotel because there were people calling for book deals and movie deals and documentaries and just all kinds of stuff. And so for those 4 days we were playing the Angels, before we went to the ballpark every day, Steve and I would go around to all the different distribution companies and meet Weinstein people. And we met Noah Wiley and his group, and we met Disney, and everybody had their idea on what they wanted for a movie. And none of it had much to do with my high school kids. And that's what I wanted it about. And so as Steve Canner and I, my agent, are walking across the grounds of Disney, and we've already been to all these other places, he goes, what do you want? And I said, I want a movie about kids who are counted out from the beginning and yet find a way to overcome and reach higher than even they thought they could do. And I said, secondly, I want a movie about older people who have tried to do something, they failed at it, and then they get a second chance. And are we going to succeed or are we going to fail? And I said, that's what I want. And I walk into Disney and they tell me the exact same thing I said in the parking lot. And I looked at Steve and I went, they have microphones everywhere. And it's just, I was sold on it before I walked out of Disney. That's where I wanted it.
And for those that may not have seen it, Dennis Quaid plays you and did a brilliant job, by the way. I mean, a lot of the scenes actually were filmed inside of the baseball stadium.
Yeah,
the Rangers,
we had an incredible time, and we were filming during a seventh inning stretch on 3 different nights. And Dennis is in the bullpen with the Rangers and he's playing catch for like 9 innings. And I walk over, I go, dude, what's up? He goes, I'm just nervous, man. I'm just playing catch. I said, why are you nervous? He goes, what happens if I trip? I said, then it's a comedy. Don't worry about it. I said, but you're going to be carrying a bottle of Advil around tomorrow. And he proved me wrong. It wasn't Advil, it was Tylenol. But the next day, his arm hurt so bad, and he goes, I can't move. And I said, I told you.
And Dennis was having problems of his own at that time, too.
He was going through a divorce. I was going through a divorce. And we both decided that's not what this movie was about. It was about relationships for reaching dreams. And so he was totally on board with me having it about the kids and people like us getting a second chance. And the night we win the ESPY award, they're sending him to one party and they're sending us to a different party. And he calls me back after we walk out and he hugs me. He goes, I just want you to know you've turned my career around. So in a way, it was his second chance. And that was heartwarming because for 4 years, he and I had been friends and I'd gone to see his band play while we were filming in Austin and he and I would hang out and have dinner and just a really cool guy. And even now he'll call every once in a while and I'm like out running or something and my phone rings and you see Dennis Quaid on it for a minute. You're like, whoa. You're like, oh yeah, he's my friend.
Yeah.
And just a genuine guy.
I was going to ask you, how is Dennis?
Totally awesome. When he signed on to do the film, he said, if you see anything being filmed you don't like, you tell me it's out. And he was true to his word.
And you were surprised at all the camera angles that were being done. I mean, that just amazed you how many hours it took for like one scene to get the right view.
Yeah, when we make The Vet and Dennis is giving the kids the talk where they challenge him, the wind is blowing sideways that day. I mean, it is unbelievable. But you watch it in the film and you're like, hey, weather's perfect. But the wind was blowing so hard they had to keep changing angles on it as the sun would move because they're trying to get everything right. And they've got like these $100,000 microphones out there. And I had no idea. I've never been on a movie set. I had no idea how much cameras cost, no idea how much boom microphones cost or any of that. But when you watch it, it goes off flawlessly. And it took 13 hours to film that scene. It was like 45 seconds on film. I was just shocked.
And the actual movie got cut down by a little bit as well.
They filmed so much and they had so much tape that when they pulled my wife and I out to Burbank to watch it, we watch it, it's in black and white and there's no music. And so it's like 3.5 hours long and they get done, they look at us like, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, because I don't know about movies. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And then 2 weeks later, literally, Mike, I'm watching this with the Religious Broadcasters Convention in Nashville, Tennessee, and I have to watch my movie before I talk to them. And the finished product, I was just blown away by. I had to quit crying before I could go up and talk. It was like reliving all of it. It was just incredible.
So the whole entire movie, you would say, is pretty much accurate and true to how your life has played out?
The many differences, the little bitty differences are the differences in, it's Texas. And so I wasn't born in Big Lake. I wasn't born in Texas. I was born in San Diego because my dad was in the military, but Brownwood was my hometown. And Brownwood is a football town. And it just combined West Texas people together. And so for film's sake, to get a film 2 hours or less, you want to do that so you can keep people's attention. For some reason, with all the computers and things that we have, people don't have a very long attention span. But yeah, I was blown away by the final product. And, we filmed it from the end to the beginning. And so I had no idea how they were going to put it together. And then when I saw it, I was like, wow, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I want to talk about your faith. You said at the top of the program, you are a man of faith, and I am as well. So my dad is a pastor himself, and so I can relate to you on that one. And I know that I asked you what has got you through all of what you've done. I mean, to get to where you're at, would you also say that your faith has carried you quite a bit as well?
Oh, my faith. my wife and my faith, man.
Yeah.
And I look at the times when I faltered, and it was my fault because I lost that relationship. And when I would get the relationship back, the faith grew exponentially. And my grandparents are the ones who instilled that in me. And my grandmother was our church secretary, smartest woman I've ever seen, could do trig in her head, which I still don't get because apparently it skips generations. But I went from watching my parents treat each other the absolute worst you could treat each other to watching my grandparents never say a cross word to each other and always lifting each other up and always helping other people. Even though they were not rich, they always found a way to give back. And if that was faith in the early 80s, that's what I wanted to carry into now, because we need that right now. And I've learned that from experience, that when I falter, it's because my faith has faltered and I need to get back to where I need to be.
And for those watching, would you say that your relationship with Jesus has been the absolute best decision you've ever made in your life?
Yeah, there were times after the tryout even, and I'm like, God, I'm hard-headed, man. If this is what you want, you got to tell me. Let me know. Let me know. And every time I wanted to quit, something would happen to keep me going. And it was like Jesus going, you know what? You're going to stay a little bit longer. And then I did what I was supposed to do, and you're going to stay a little bit longer, and you're going to stay a little bit longer. You know, last time I wanted to quit when I was in the minor leagues, I after our game, I went out and watched a little league game, and I watched these kids smiling and having fun playing the game of baseball. And the relationship with Jesus is there too, because it took me right back to when I was 7 years old. And I was that kid in between the white lines, and I was the one smiling and playing for a hot dog and a Coke. And, you know, times have changed. Now we play for a Chick-fil-A sandwich and a Coke. But just the joy of playing the game you grew up loving. And
Absolutely.
He used baseball to give me my dream back through a group of kids who everybody had counted out when I had been counted out all along the way. And who knew all of us would become successful because we pushed each other.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back to your grandfather for just a moment. When Ernest had passed away, all these people that he had helped from all over the country were coming to his funeral.
It was the largest funeral I've ever seen happen in Brownwood. And it was cold. It was in late November. It was cold. It was sleeting. But these people had come from all over the country to pay respects to my grandfather because of what he stood for. And I never heard him yell, scream, or cuss anybody. He always treated everybody with the utmost respect. He's the person who said, if you treat other people like you want your grandmother treated, you're going to make the world a little bit better.
Yeah.
If you don't judge people, then you won't be judged. And he goes, if you cut every human being open on this planet, what comes out of this is blood. It's red, and we all bleed red. Jimmy, we are the same color, and don't let anybody tell you different. It doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what language you speak. We're going to treat each other with respect. And my grandfather was incredible. And if I could be half that person, I would be doing a great job. But he went through and saw things that I will never, ever see or go through because I don't have to, because he went through them.
Yeah.
And to bring us where we are. And we've lost that respect for our country and for our faith. And I miss that, how we treat each other with kindness and hope and faith. And we've lost it.
Did you know a lot of those people that came to his funeral?
One of the relationships that I didn't realize until I did a podcast with Dennis last year was that one of my grandfather's best friends was his uncle. It was Gene Autry. And I was like, what? And, you know, I remember Gene walking in and hugging my grandfather like they were best friends. I didn't even know they knew each other. I recognized him from TV. And that was back when we had 3 channels and we were the remote control, right? And so I'm like, that is Gene Autry. Hugs my grandfather. They hang out. They're laughing and giggling. And I'm like, later on, you know, who knew 40 years later, I'm talking to Dennis. He goes, that's my uncle. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Small world, man. And then Dennis plays me.
And then there's another person who your grandfather had visit from time to time, a certain football coach.
Which coach?
Tom Landry.
He knew Tom Landry. He would come down and buy hats for my grandfather, then go back and coach on the sidelines wearing a hat from my grandfather's store. Just unbelievable the amount of connections that he had. And that was
Yeah.
just because of the type of person he was. People gravitated to him. He had charisma. He had a way of speaking. It took me 15 years of public speaking to realize that my grandfather was a Toastmaster. And so he spoke all over the place in Texas. And I'm like, it is absolutely a small world. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
my grandfather knew everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like it, definitely. And then at his funeral, there was another gentleman who came up and showed you something that he was wearing from your grandfather's store.
This is actually way after my grandfather passed away, and I do a speech in Houston, and it's for a fundraiser for a children's group. And after this, and if Mike, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
When you have kids, there's something that happens to men. When the nurse puts the baby in your arms, men develop this emotion, and it's called tears. And I don't understand it. But after my speech, this old man comes up to me, and I say old, and I'm 57. So he's like 95. And he's crying before he gets to me. So I've had a kid, I've had 5 now, and now I'm crying. And we haven't even spoken to each other yet. And he walks up and he opens the breast of his jacket, has Ernest Morris menswear. And he goes, you know what? When I wanted to chase the dream that I wanted, your grandfather told me that wouldn't work. And he gave me a different avenue to go down.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that I took his advice. And because of him, in my life, I've owned, I can't remember, 5 or 7 banks now.
Wow.
And just unbelievable.
Wow. Well, Jim, what are you up to these days now? I know you're still going around speaking, but how's life after baseball for you?
Life is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Speaking is a lot less injury prone
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
baseball. But we're speaking in person and virtually and going day by day with all the rules, but just getting back out there and having human contact with people. I think that's what people need. We need to learn to interact in person and not on a computer screen. And that's just my 2 cents. But yeah, I do virtual. We're doing this. We're also putting together a Bible study right now with the last chapter in the book on the 7 principles of being a dream maker. And so I just got off the phone with one of the pastors who wants me to present it at his church in October. And I'm like, I guess I better get busy writing it then. And life is good and life is fast and I'm having fun.
Do you want to give a shout out to your church here on the podcast?
My church is Impact Church in Kerrville, Texas. And the other churches we're going to are all across the country. And I look forward to speaking to each and every one of them because for me, that's where I get filled up. I go out and I speak to the public all the time and all these secular audiences. When I get to go into a church and I get to hear the worship and the music, man, it puts you where you need to be. You're lifted up and elevated a little bit. And that's what I love.
Well, if you're ever in Kansas City, come by Abundant Life Baptist Church, Pastor Phil Hopper, and we have about a 7,000 member church.
Oh, that would be a blast.
With the best praise you've ever heard. So if you're ever there, would love to see you there sometime.
That's awesome, Mike. I look forward to it. Actually, one of my kids that I coached as he grew up got picked in the first round last year, and he was a number 4 pick for Kansas City. And hopefully he'll be up in the big leagues in a few years, and that's Asa Lacy. And
sure, absolutely.
We will see. He was 5'9" when I started working with him. I think he's 6'5" or 6'6" now.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Wow.
He's a big cat, man. And he
Yeah.
can throw hard.
Well, Kansas City needs all the help they can get.
You know what? They're getting better.
Yeah.
And they're starting to build up all the minor league teams. And so when you can have a system where you can and draw from, that's a lot better than having to go out and spend a whole lot of money for someone who is on the verge of being over the hill and you're just getting them for a season. So
That's
when you
true.
can bring these kids up to come in, Toronto's doing a great job of it. Tampa's doing a great job of it. And I see Kansas City doing the same thing now. And so I think in a few years, they're going to be really good.
Absolutely. We're hoping to get back to 2015.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, anyways, Jim, thank you so much. I want to give one more plug to your book here. It's called Dream Makers. Surround yourself with the best to be your best. Folks,
Yeah,
buy this book.
the feather on the front.
There's
That
a feather on the
explains,
front.
that's chapter 10. If you read chapter 10, you'll understand the feather.
Jim, I'm going to send this book out to you to get signed.
Yes, sir. I will look forward to it.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, sir, for your time. God bless you. And I cannot wait to see you in Kansas City and hopefully at my church.
Thank you. God bless you too.